Now, ever since Bob Iger took over Bob Chapek as the Disney CEO, the board members have been really trying to progress with the Star Wars franchise by implementing a lot of new and upcoming Star Wars shows that's really going to stay in line with John and Dave's overall vision and how they're really keeping George Lucas's legacy alive. And that's one thing that they're trying to really stay consistent with when it comes to, of course, all of the upcoming shows on Disney Plus, and even some of the planned Star Wars TV shows and movies in the future. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the kind and great support. Now, one thing about the Disney Star Wars universe between George, John, and Dave is that they are all working together as a team to really make sure that they can bring Star Wars back to the George Lucas vision and bringing it back to its roots, right? And basically, they're finally beginning to realize that the Skywalkers need to stay relevant. They need to keep those characters relevant, to at least to some extent. You can't just do away with them completely, which is exactly why Favreau brought back in Luke, in, of course, Mando Season 2 and Book of Boba Fett, and how they're going to continue to do that in new upcoming Star Wars shows. And that brings us to Bob Iger and exactly what's going on with him behind closed doors, and what's going on with the continuation of the Skywalker Saga, Disney's plan for all of that, and exactly what's happening. So this is where things begin to get a lot more complex, is that we have, of course, multiple Star Wars projects in the works when it comes to movies and such. Now, we already know that they have a format that they're trying to create to release 2 Star Wars movies a year, having one trilogy movie format and one one-off film, or a spin-off film, whatever have you, to release after each year. So, with that being said, with Lucasfilm getting ready to make some big announcements for the fans, creators John and Dave are very involved with multiple new Star Wars TV shows that will be unveiled in the coming months. Now, it's noted, however, that Disney is currently planning to expand the Skywalker Saga again and to bring it back to the theaters for one final shot to end the saga once and for all on the big screen. Disney is said to be doing this in 2 different ways for the fandom, by creating episodes 10 through 12 that are already in early development, as well as a new sequel trilogy that will be considered a Mandalorian trilogy that will focus on characters like Ezra Bridger, Luke, Ahsoka, and others that will also be considered a tale of the Skywalker Saga. Now further, this is said to be Disney's Hail Mary to provide fans a cinematic experience. Disney not only wants to extend the Skywalker family and bloodline, but to also revisit some of the fan-favorite characters like Anakin, Luke, young Ben Solo, and Cade Skywalker from Star Wars Legends, with the addition of Luke's son in the works to become canonized prematurely before the films using books first. Now, let me just pause here for a second. Now, we already talked about how they have an episode 10 through 12 in the early development phase, and how they're not going to begin production on that until 2026. It is still a ways out, and it's something that they're really trying to push and get done. Favreau and Filoni are involved with that as well, creating a lot of notes for the upcoming episodes 10 through 12 and the direction of it all. But the other thing that really stands out to me, I think the most, that's going to be more successful, and maybe I'm crazy, but I think that the Mandalorian trilogy may just very well be a little bit more successful than in episode 10 through 12, depending on the variables, depending on what 10 through 12, specifically down to the core, is going to be about. We know the basics, that it's going to be about Cade Skywalker and Luke Skywalker's grandson as the 2, I guess you could say, protagonists, pretty much centering on the concept of Skywalker cousins as the story, and introducing villains like Darth Talon and Darth Krayt, stuff like that. That's the overall baseline. There's not much more beyond that. However, with the Mandalorian trilogy, they're planning on considering it a piece of the Skywalker Saga, a continuation of the story in between episodes 6 and 7, showing us the story of Luke, Ezra, Ahsoka, and others out there. That's really going to lend a lot of credit to other tales with Boba Fett, Din Djarin, Grogu, and more. So basically what John and Dave are doing is that all of these new Star Wars shows coming out, they're using it as a setup now to really bring it to a level of bringing them into the movies, putting all these characters on the big screen, and making a Mandalorian trilogy that's going to be extremely high budget, very high quality, and very well written through and through. That's what they plan to do as well, to continue the Skywalker Saga, and to bring it back into the theaters, no less. Now, Disney CEO Bob Iger recently came to the realization that Star Wars needs to go back to the theaters with both trilogy movies and one-off films to balance things out for all fans. Only makes sense because not all fans want to see Skywalker stuff. You know, there's always going to be some fans that want to have a break from that and want something different. You know, think like Rogue One, a Star Wars story, or Solo, right? Those were great little breaks in between the trilogy movies. Now, Hayden has already been approached to take part in the Mandalorian trilogy as an Anakin Force ghost, and more flashbacks of Clone Wars Anakin. Now, here's the thing about this, is that The Mandalorian has proven to be very successful so far, and Mando 3, without a doubt, is going to be off the charts amazing. We already know that it's all going to be about Mandalore, it's going to be about Bo-Katan and her struggle, and her complex relationship with Din Djarin, you know, as Mandalorians, and everything to do with the Darksaber, stuff around those lines. We're going to be learning more about that in the coming weeks. But the other thing that really stands out to me too is how they really are gearing things up for Luke to be a main focus, not just in Mando Season 4, but also in the planned Ahsoka Season 2, which by the way is currently being pitched by both John and Dave. Now, about episodes 10 through 12, we talked about this a couple of days ago, of how Cade Skywalker is going to be the new hero, or the new Skywalker, quote-unquote, as the focus point. And basically what I like about Cade so much is that he is a mixture of all characters, of Han Solo, Luke, Boba Fett, stuff like that. He is pretty much all the main characters into one living being. He is a Jedi, he's a bounty hunter, he's a smuggler, he's even a criminal, and he's even a slicer in some scenarios. Slicer as in hacker. We have a lot of things like that that are mixed in, and I think that's why Cade is a very interesting character. Go ahead and read up on the Star Wars Legacy comics, you'll know what I'm talking about. But beyond all of that, this is Bob Iger's big Hail Mary, like I said before. Really making this Mandalorian trilogy, and a more distant trilogy for episodes 10 through 12, to really just end the Skywalker Saga for good. They don't want to make any more episodic films after that. They want to stop it at 12, a full stop, and cut it off forever. That's their plan. And I think it's a great idea. I think that they have to at least throw in one final shot. Some fans, I'm sure, are going to be like, well, they don't want to see that, and I understand that. Perfectly fine. But overall, guys, you know, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.